Secretary General Matharu. Thank you, Rahul. May I now request Dr. A. Didar Singh, Secretary General FICCI, to kindly welcome the audience.
Thank you, Vivek. Thanks to all of you for taking the time out to be with us this morning. As Secretary General of the Federation of Indian Chambers of Commerce and Industry, it's my proud privilege to formally welcome Lieutenant General Philip Campos, the Honorable Chief Guest and Vice Chief of Army Staff. Thank you, sir, for being with us today. Thank you also to Lieutenant General J.S. Matharu for joining us here this morning, Dr. Sandeep Oberoi, Mr. Jayant Baranwal, and all the other luminaries, senior officers, Government of India officials, and private industry that have assembled for this very important seminar that we are organizing here for the first time in the Federation of Indian Chambers of Commerce and Industry. So just for your information, FICCI is a very, very old organization. 1927 is when we started. And basically what we have been attempting to do across so many years and so many different environments that India has been in, we've been basically trying to focus on industry bringing better economic environment for the economy as a whole. That has always been our focus. We do not support any one sector, we do not support any one industry. We basically look at the overall economic environment and see the improvements that is necessary to be brought into it. This particular area, the whole area of information technology, ICT, is something that we in FICCI have been working at for over the last 30 years. We have very strong committees in the IT area, we have strong committees in telecom, we have very strong committees in what we refer to as iBharat, which is taking technology into improving the socio-economic conditions for people in India. And it is in this context that we have also been working, and we hope to be able to do more work with the defense forces. We have had a very close relationship with defense forces and the entire Ministry of Defense for many, many years. We have worked in the area of policy research. We have given a large number of recommendations over the years in terms of how the potential and the strength of Indian industry needs to be utilized in this entire sector. We are absolutely thrilled with the new changes we are seeing in our government. Industry is very, very excited about what we see now as being referred to by our Honorable Prime Minister in a very simple phrase of Make in India. This phrase transcends all the work that all of us do, and it transcends every sector that we are part of. And defense sector, we are extremely happy to see a move, not just today, but a move over the last few years. We are beginning to see that from the Air Force, from the Army, and from Navy, that there is a very strong interest in working with Indian industry, which we all know is something which is really mature and very, very widespread. We are very lucky in an emerging economy like India to have such a strong industrial base. But this strong industrial base must be matched by its actual work in the key areas such as defense. Only then will we be able to stand proud as a nation in this world. Sir, we are all aware that secure information networks and faster processing of digital information is the key to future warfare. We know that conventional warfare itself is changing, and we know that the strengths that ICT brings into this area is what will determine the future performances of countries like India. We are extremely happy to see that the defense services, particularly the Indian Army, have done a tremendous amount of work in this area and have come up with a lot of specialization which has made our country strong in many of the aspects of this kind of secure information networks and digital information being used for defense activities. But we also believe that India, with its tremendous strength in ICT and India with its tremendous strength in manufacturing, can actually bring this together and work with the defense forces to ensure that we are able to use this even more as we go along in the Make in India network that we are all talking about. Battlefield Management Systems aims to address exactly this. That is why we are having this seminar today, where we thought we must bring together the high senior officers of the defense forces and senior representatives of Indian industry so that we can actually talk in terms of tactical communication systems, battlefield management systems, and see how they can be categorized and brought together into the MAKE program that the Defense Ministry has announced and has been pushing. In fact, FICCI is urging the Ministry of Defense that the integrated management team and the MAKE program must be expedited with the finalization of TCS and BMS programs, because these alone will set the ground for things actually happening. We have to move beyond the area of policy discourse and actually go into the area of manufacturing. That we can only do if the Defense Ministry actually puts it out and makes it as a part of their activities and their ongoing programs. We are hoping for absolutely the best of it, and today's will be the day when we can look at issues and areas that are coming in the way of converting this into the reality that we all expect it to. So thank you very much, all of you, for being with us today. Formal welcome on behalf of FICCI, a federation which will stand behind both our defense services as well as our industry to ensure that this can and will happen. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Singh. We will now have a presentation on the Indian industry perspective by Dr. Sandeep Oberoi, Global Head for Niche Technology Delivery Group, TCS. May I request Dr. Oberoi to kindly make the presentation.
Can I use this?
Good morning, everybody. And can you hear me fine? So, I know this is a seminar on battlefield management and digitization of the battlefield, but I am not going to talk about that. My talk is about perspectives, and several experts will talk about several details later, but mine is a talk on perspectives. So the first thing is your perspective depends on where you stand. That's important. All of us stand in different places. It's important to respect that, and please take this perspective as a perspective from where we stand. The first perspective is one of procuring outcomes versus procuring goods. This is an important thing. In many of the important projects that we are talking about creating complex state-of-the-art system. So the system is more than the sum of its components. It's something more than that. It's not just the components, it's something more. There is an outcome that you want. And how do you procure outcomes? Specifications evolve. They evolve from the concept to maturity. And we must be able to reflect this in policy. We must be able to cater for the evolution of a system from concept through execution into support. And you must evaluate capability to deliver outcomes, not capability to deliver goods. Both are important. Our experiences in the past have been procuring goods that could be specified in relatively simple terms, simple specifications. And that has got reflected in large effort being put into attempting to specify a system so completely that it can be procured on an L1 basis, and a system that is envisaged to be fielded for 10 years or 15 years, which is 2 to 3 times the life cycle of technology today. So technologies don't last that long. So that's the thing I want to leave you with. We are trying to procure outcomes. We're not trying to procure goods. And that's why we are not making progress, or as much as we should. The second thing I want to talk about is evolutions versus revolutions. It's becoming increasingly difficult to create big bang systems. It's gone back, is it? Thank you. So it's increasingly difficult to create big bang systems. Today, if you think about making upgradations to a network or your own network or the internet, you can't shut down what exists and build a new one. Today, the pace of technology is giving you certain possibilities, which I have depicted by that green line. These are the possibilities that you know because you see other people using those technologies. You have an investment in your current technology, which is your current capability line. This technology debt keeps on increasing. That technology debt is increasing at a very fast pace. So many small revolutions, many small evolutions are a revolution. What does that mean in terms of policy? You can't procure a system once in a couple of decades. You have to continuously refresh your systems. Continuously refresh them. Procure continuously. And in order to do that, you have to be able to interoperate. We can't have big bang systems that don't talk to each other. Okay? So that's the second thing I want to talk to you about, or leave with you as a message. Okay? Evolutions rather than revolutions. The third thing is a little bit of a touchy point with the private sector. There is the general consensus that the private sector must be involved in the defense industry. We are past that hurdle. That is also agreed that there are guarantees that private firms need to give, which a government organization need not give. While that is fine, if that is used, if the financial implication of that is used to determine who's the best bid is, that's not a level playing field. So by all means, take bank guarantees, by all means, do all the other things that you need to do. But remove those finance costs out of the comparison of what the proposition is. Because if you intend that private industry participates, it needs to be competitive. And it needs to be competitive genuinely on the basis of its, apple to apple costs. And over the past years, the private industry has shown the willingness to invest in demonstrator projects. Foreign exchange fluctuations are a reality. Over the last year, the way in which the dollar appreciated against the rupee is not something that anybody could have predicted. Okay? But it's a real impact. It's a genuine impact. Okay? At the policy level, it's fair for the Indian industry, the private industry, to ask for the playing field to be leveled a bit. So I'm now going to the crypto question. Those who know me, and there are many in the audience that do, always expect me to talk about this question. I've done it for a decade, more than a decade. I'll do it again. It's still a question. See, when security is involved, things slow down a bit. Okay. So for those of you who are waiting for the crypto slide, here it is. Here's the crypto slide. Over the past decade, I know that groups that I am in charge of personally have spent tens of crores. We put in a lot of money into crypto. A lot of money. Yeah? Almost 80% of the Indian public key infrastructure system runs on those products and solutions. Yeah? There is a large investment. We have made those investments at a time where there were serious crypto denial regimes. Now, we have spent decades arguing about the kind of grading that products that are designed or manufactured by the Indian private sector will get. So there are the questions of algorithm, key management. We are no longer in a situation where you are talking about a few hundred bulk encryptors being put at the end of point-to-point lines. We are in a situation where you will have millions of devices and every endpoint requires to be secured cryptography, keys to be managed. You are not going to run around with fill guns there. Yeah. So this is a problem. You have to at a policy level decide whether the private sector is to be involved or not to be involved. And if we are to be involved, we have to finish the policy stuff quickly. We've fought this for 10 years. We have to finish this, one way or another. Either the private sector has a role, if it doesn't have a role, if it has a role, what is that role? It cannot be a meaningless G0 grading role. I'm nearing the end of my time, sorry. I have one last thing to say. Okay? It's a blank slide. All of you people are wondering, what is a blank slide? Is it a profound slide? No, I just forgot to finish this slide. Simple explanation. Okay? But the key that I am putting here is that we have to partner for success. The ecosystems required to evolve, deploy, support complex technology require partnerships. So far, we have learned how to compete. We should compete. Being competitive gives advantages to customers, but we also have to partner. We have to partner for success. Okay? We have to partner for success. And having said that, I am finished.
Thank you, Dr. Oberoi. Well, you made very pertinent points that you need an evolution, not a revolution, and the technology cycle becoming obsolete within the procurement cycle. Now, may I request the chief guest, Lieutenant General Philip Compos, AVSM PAR, VSM, Vice Chief of the Army Staff, to kindly deliver the inaugural address. I'll just introduce the General. Lieutenant General Philip Compos was commissioned into the infantry in the year 1974 and was later transferred to the mechanized infantry in the year 1982. Over the last 40 years of service, the general officer has held a number of important command, staff, and instructional appointments, which include command of the 4I Armored Brigade, 10 Infantry Division on the line of control in the Jammu and Kashmir, 12 corps in the deserts and the Western Army. The general has done tenures in the United Nations peacekeeping in the former Yugoslavia as well as in the northern Iraq, where he was the head of the mission. He's also headed the Land Vector and Strategic Forces Command and was earlier Director General Perspective Planning at the Army Headquarters. After serving as the GOC in C Western Command at Chandi Mandir, Lieutenant General Campos has taken over as Vice Chief of the Army Staff from August 1st, 2014. He's also the Colonel Commandant of the Mechanized Infantry Regiment. May I request the General to kindly deliver the inaugural address.
Secretary General FECI, CMD SP Guide Publications, distinguished guests, my colleagues from the three services, ladies and gentlemen. Before I came here this morning, I attended the traditional wreath-laying ceremony on the occasion of the Infantry Day at the India Gate, because today happens to be the Infantry Day. And while we in the leadership of the Army salute our martyrs of the infantry year after year, especially those who have passed away in the previous year, we take a solemn pledge to ourselves that we will do everything to prevent more martyrs falling prey to the subconventional warfare which continues on our borders. So it is in that spirit my talk today would reflect the needs of the soldier, the needs of the cutting edge, who not only prepare for the conventional battles which may take place in the future, but also the conflict situations that they face day to day in various parts of the country and on our borders. So at the outset, let me express the Army's appreciation to the FICCI and SP Guide Publications for undertaking this initiative to organize this international seminar on digitization of the battlefield with the focus on extending net centricity to the last mile in the tactical battle area. The concept of net-centric warfare has evolved from a simple theory that when dispersed elements of a force operate over a shared information network, these serve to enhance situational awareness, facilitate collaborative planning, and enables self-synchronization, the sum total of all these manifesting in substantial enhancement in combat power and speed of operations. Conceived in the 90s, baptized in Kosovo, and validated during operations Enduring Freedom and Iraqi Freedom, today net centricity has come of age and has become more than a buzzword in military vocabulary amongst all modern armed forces. Having made a slow yet deliberate start in the late 90s, today we are on a fast track with most of our systems at various stages of development, including some systems already fielded. The imperative need for extending net centricity to the last mile in the tactical battle area cannot be overemphasized. To realize its full potential, we must strive to have end-to-end net centricity. Appreciating this, we have also recently undertaken the project Battlefield Management Systems, BMS, to extend net centricity to the cutting edge of our forces. Like I mentioned, it's the forward troops, the infantry, which bears the brunt of our conflict situations, especially what goes on day to day in what we know today as peacetime conditions. So with all these initiatives, I'm sanguine that in the next few years, our field forces will have state-of-the-art digital systems in their hands. Central to the net-centric concepts is speed, that is, to sustain the momentum and tempo of our operations. This is achieved in part by clearing the fog of war, by bringing forth a high degree of transparency of the battlefield through integration of all surveillance and reconnaissance resources, supported by powerful applications that fuse and synthesize the information received through them. In part, it is achieved by providing a comprehensive battle picture to commanders through efficient real-time information sharing, which reduces the friction associated with situational awareness gaps at different hierarchic levels. Thus, essentially, net-centric systems are all about speed as they strive to compress the decision-making time. The hallmarks of network-centric warfare being speed, self-synchronization, and flexibility. It is consciously modeled on fundamental changes that have taken place in the fields of communications and information technology. The inspiration, however, is drawn not simply from the revolution in these two fields, but also from the confluence of the two. Here it is pertinent to emphasize that net centricity is not about networks alone. In fact, capability enhancement is achieved through powerful applications, providing a common operational picture and appropriate decision support tools over the network. It is primarily in this enterprise of developing the applications that the experts from the technology domain and military domain have to work together. This aspect is particularly pertinent in the context of the Indian industry foraying into this arena through Project BMS as a departure from the past practice of network-centric systems being developed by the defense PSUs alone. So to that extent, I agree with the concerns expressed by Dr. Sandeep Oberoi. Whether there would be a level playing field, let me assure him that at least in the services, we are convinced that there must be a level playing field. And I must also mention that this is the sense that we get even from the Ministry of Defense, that they also are fully with ensuring a level playing field as far as moving into our procurement systems are concerned. Thus, there is a need for the developing agencies to understand the military requirements of such systems, be it hardware related or application related. In this respect, the most important aspect to be kept in mind is that commanders and staff need to be presented information that is not just raw, but processed. These mostly relate to information about the enemy and terrain. Commanders engaged in battle have little time to sift through huge pile of available information and to draw intelligence out of it. The automated system should be able to synthesize and to a degree interpret intelligence inputs received from different sources. The system should be intelligent to a degree to be able to push information to the commanders and staff rather than wait for the pull from the decision makers. Information so pushed should be contextual, based on the need, and in a comprehensive format, preferably on the digital map, thus preventing an information overload. Ideally, the soldier in the field cannot be expected to keep looking at his computer console for information. The focus will be on the battlefield ahead, looking at the adversary. This is particularly so at the unit level and below. Therefore, we have to devise means to provide relevant information to him without distracting him from the task ahead. To this end, available and evolving technology must be harnessed. We are also aware that the effectiveness of net centricity, by implication, is dependent on a robust and survivable network in the context of a hostile physical and electronic environment. We must therefore design our systems and networks in such a way that they have high survivability against all forms of attacks, whether physical, electronic, or cyber. While redundancy in communications may appear the obvious solution, we must consider its effect on the weight that the soldier has to carry. Another important aspect is that net-centric systems must cater against information loss. This relates to information in the computing systems as much as information in transit. In the particular context of the systems fielded in the contact battle area, the possibility of these falling into enemy hands cannot be ruled out. It must be ensured that the enemy does not gain access to the information in the captured systems. Also, there is no emphasizing the fact that these systems must be field usable. They must be rugged, compact, and easy to be carried and maintained in the field. Bulky systems with large physical, thermal, or electronic signatures are not acceptable, since they tend to negate the very advantages accruing from net centricity by exposing the systems and networks to the adversary's observations and attacks. One crucial component of the digitized battlefield, often glossed over, is the aspect of geographical information system, and in particular digitized maps. When we step into the net-centric space, GIS represents terrain in the digital domain. Very potent and versatile GIS applications exist today. In order to exploit the power of these applications, there is a requirement to obtain state-of-the-art digitized maps to complement our efforts at net centricity. Organizations within the Army and outside need to be focused and energized in this direction. In conclusion, net-centric warfare as a component of RMA portends a profound change in the way we prosecute future wars and other conflict scenarios. It is therefore imperative that we understand its nuances in our politico-military context, deliberate on the optimum configurations and features which best suit our operational requirements, and structure our systems accordingly. I'm sure during the deliberations that follow today, we will have the speakers from the Defense Forces, academia, and in the industry articulating the finer requirements in these systems, the challenges involved, and viable technical answers to address all these aspects. I wish the seminar all success. Jai Hind.
Thank you, General. May I now request Mr. Jayant Baranwal, Managing Director, SP Guide Publications, to kindly deliver the vote of thanks.
Very good morning to all of you, my friends. We are very grateful to Lieutenant General Philip Campos, AVSM, VSM, Vice Chief of Army Staff, sparing his time for this initiative. And thank you very much, sir, for your kind and inaugural address. I would like to convey my thanks also to Dr. Didar Singh for our partnership. We really appreciate the effort towards working together. I would also like to convey our sincere thanks to Lieutenant General Mataru, Director General Information Systems, making this event success by his presence. If I may make a mention about what our Prime Minister spoke about during the Commanders Conference, as Dr. Didar rightly said, that we have a very brilliant and vibrant new leadership. He did say that while we are talking about digital India, we need to have our armed forces digitized. And I believe such a statement coming from our Honorable Prime Minister will go a long way, and which will enable the actionable policies and plans so that our armed forces are duly digitized and capable enough to tackle the challenges in coming times. We sincerely thank our partners who enable the success and viability of the seminar. And I believe that the upcoming deliberations will offer a collection of good foods of thought and will attempt to contribute meaningful effort, meaningful drop in the ocean. And thanks a lot to all of the dignitaries and friends for their presence. Jai Hind.
Thank you, Mr. Baranwal. With this, we close the inaugural session for this international seminar. We will now break for tea, and we will reassemble at 11:15 for session 1, Battlefield Milieu at the Cutting Edge.